you. Thank you.
All right, so welcome everyone. And I really appreciate in such a busy world that all of you have taken some of your precious time to actually be here. And it's pretty reflective and symbolic of the state of the world right now. We're all really busy, just running our lives, having quality of life. So again, thank you for being here. My name is Michael DiMartino, and I am the producer of Golden Road TV and radio show. Really quick, about 2 years ago, after moving from Santa Cruz, where I worked for the University of California, Santa Cruz, I moved to this area, again, not for just quality of life and to avoid the traffic and the congestion and the sad reality of what's happened to Monterey Bay since Fukushima. I moved up here to actually head to higher ground and find a safer and more sane place to live that had a sense of community. So 2 years ago, we started the Golden Road TV and radio show. Since then, we've broadcast over 52-hour shows. And not just that, but when we broadcast our show, we're actually in 8 counties on cable TV, also on YouTube and Facebook. And we've also been blessed enough to be able to partner with KVMR and do some live stream broadcasts from the KVMR studio. So I want to acknowledge them and all that they do for the community. So I didn't come here to recreate a wheel, but what I did come here to do is to help build bridges between all the individuals in the community, all the hundreds of nonprofit organizations, and to build a bridge working with the government agencies around the idea of community building and resilience. If you're not clear what resilience is, it just means the flexibility to be able to deal with things that are happening. Everything from wildfire, emergency preparedness, things that are happening with food and water safety and security, issues of economic development, and holistic health. And the only way that we can really attain this objective is through building these bridges and partnerships. So I thank all of the keynote speakers, especially the fire department, who have taken time out to be here today to help as part of this broadcast to get what happens in the room today archived and out to the community. So again, I applaud all of you and I thank the keynote speakers for being here. So I'm just going to speak for another minute, and while we're doing that, I'm going to have Rick Barron set up the rest of the chairs. So the other keynote speakers, if you guys can please make your way to the front and find a chair. So really quickly, since we started Golden Road TV, we broadcast the show every week. It's a 2-hour show, and now once a month, we're going to start doing these live streams from the Tech Center. What's really exciting, because we live in a world of technology, anyone with a cell phone, a smartphone can watch these broadcasts, can also find out the information later. Well, about a year ago, I started collaborating with a gentleman, Lou Casabianca, who was involved in the 100 City Initiative, where $500 million was given to 100 cities around the world to deal with all the issues of resilience, like climate change. A lot of places that are on the coast are really feeling the effects, whether you believe it's a conspiracy or not. Things are happening and people are being influenced, going all the way back to what happened with the hurricane in New Orleans, what's happening on the East Coast, the tsunamis, the hurricanes, all these things that are happening that affect our quality of life and our stability as a community. So a couple years back, $500 million was given out to all these cities and countries around the world to develop strategies and plans for community resilience. Right now, there's islands that are being actually cleared from their population because of sea level rise. So I will leave that up to you to do more further research, but we're really in a pivotal and transitional time in human history. And that also includes the Me Too movement, the Indivisible movement, where people are actually realizing that the importance of women having a voice and a vote. Things that are happening with climate change. We can see on every front, economically, spiritually, environmentally, that things are changing. Recently, the incredible amount of fires that we've suffered here in California. And again, I applaud you and thank you for your service to our community. But what we're facing is really going to take everybody. We can't put the responsibility on other people or organizations to do the work for us. So today we're doing this broadcast as our monthly Building a Bridge of Community Resilience broadcast to inspire and call to action to get all of you, many who already are, involved in helping to recreate our society and culture in the way that's more sane, more efficient, and more safe. So 6 months ago, I did a tour called a Resiliency Tour with Payom Riles. We actually traveled out to all the counties where we broadcast a TV show. We went up to Mount Shasta. We did a live broadcast from the rec center there in conjunction with city government, Chamber of Commerce, people from economic development, CAL FIRE, who were working with the Klamath Indians up there to look at new ways to do forest and fire management. Then we went to Chico. We did a live broadcast from the Chico Women's Club with Rahasya Poe and the Lotus Guide, who's one of our keynote speakers today. This gentleman and his wife are dedicated every day of the year to putting out conscious media to help educate people about health and the environment and many other crucial topics. All of these keynote speakers are doing amazing work. We did a resiliency tour. We did a broadcast here, and what happened is we hit a nerve. So Golden Road TV and Radio slightly has changed its focus from just covering local businesses and inspiring individuals and organizations to really focusing on solution-based information and education. And that's why these people are so crucial about what they're going to share today with all of you. So again, thank you for being here. We're going to be doing this every month. We're also holding some meetings, and in conjunction with Golden Road TV, I'm partnering with Payom Riles and Rick Barron to create an entity which now has an office here called ARC, the Alliance for Resilient Communities, which will be a weekly community roundtable with broadcast happening. It's open-ended, and it's to give our community a voice and to identify the issues that affect us here. Because what affects us here, it might be different in Mount Shasta. Right now, they're dealing with Crystal Geyser, basically licensing use of the majority of the water that's coming out of that area, which affects everybody downstream. So there's a lot of issues. The analogy I would like to use, it's not a bipartisan issue. This is not anything to be politicized. It's not us against them or the system. It's really about taking a human and sane approach to identifying the issues, creating solutions, and then all of us becoming a part of that solution. I kind of compare it to, we all have a toothpick, right? And we're fighting this big dragon, whether it's a fire, right? Or it's the fact that, our water in this area is contaminated. We have heavy metals. We have other insecticides and pesticides which are affecting the quality and safety of our food and water. And I want to thank Mike Passner for being here. He's a local organic farmer who was just on the cover of the Union talking about, well, our organic farm is really organic if we're using the NID water. So these are all things. It's not more information. This is about education and activism. So I hope through the effort today that we can help inspire you, and we can invite you to come sit at a round table with all the other counties in the Sacramento River watershed and lash all of our toothpicks together against this big dragon that's happening, and we can form a lance and we can create a successful way to defeat and come up with solutions for a lot of these problems. So again, thank you for your time. And on that, I'm going to introduce Payom Riles. Payom Riles has been collaborating with Golden Road TV and Radio for the last 6 months. He also has created a really exciting project called the Source Directory, which is an actual directory in these 8 counties of the individuals and businesses who are community-minded, green, and are doing stuff right now. And you can go there and find it. While you're listening, just check out the Source Directory. And on that, I'm going to introduce civil engineer, hydrologist. He works with Stantec. He's a new permaculture design student and certified by Cathay Fish. And Cathay is here. And thank you, Cathay, for all the amazing inspiring work. You are my Swami Mommy and a wealth of knowledge. I hope that was okay. But I want to introduce Poyom Riles to talk about the source directory.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Happy autumn equinox. So the source directory was born out of the work that Michael and I did on the fall tour. In the process of planning that tour, we were having a meeting and we were sitting down talking about all these people, and we said, all these people are doing this amazing work. We want people to be able to find them. How do people find, these organizations that some that we were just learning about? Then we said, we should put them all in a directory, and that was kind of the beginning of the idea. And so we did it. Once the tour was done, we figured out how to do it, and we did it, and it's up, and you can go there, you can go sign up. We focused the directory regionally because we really wanted to use it as a tool to really highlight the people in our region, our watershed, that are working to make it a better place, essentially. More resilient, more sustainable, more regenerative. Call it what you want. But if there are people working to actively make their communities stronger, keep their food and water safe and healthy, prepare for emergencies, whatever they're doing, helping children, right? So we want to promote those people. And that's a lot of what the mission of ARC is as well. The Alliance for Resilient Communities. We want to promote people who are doing good, and also share things that are working in our communities and in other communities. So people can say, we have this issue going on. We're really scared about, all the Roundup in our food. What are we going to do? Well, wait, look, this person over here actually made a difference. Maybe we can do that too, right? So that was sort of the idea behind it. What we need from you is for you to go to the source directory, sign up. When you sign up, put some information in your little about blurb. What are you doing? Or even if you're not doing it now, what would you be interested in doing that would be supporting your community? And then the other thing that we would ask you to do is give us feedback. Is there something that you could see about the directory that could actually help make it work better? Is there something you'd like to see as part of the directory that you don't see there now? This is not, we don't have a big organization behind us putting this together. So we need as much help as possible in getting this thing to be effective and functional, and to really try to get it to be a resource and a tool that we can use to sort of highlight the strengths and benefits of our watershed and to keep our watershed healthy and clean. I think that's about it. So I'm going to introduce you to Rick. He's also part of the Alliance for Resilient Communities, Rick Barron, and we're so glad that he's come on to support us in this because he has a wealth of knowledge and experience that is really useful. So thanks, Rick.
Thank you. So as Poyom said, I'm the volunteer project manager, and I stepped on board to help put this public event together for the community. And during the course of this, I've had a lot of people ask me, what exactly is, ARC? What does it stand for, and what does resiliency mean? Well, Alliance for Resilient Communities. Alliance is a merging of efforts of interest by persons, families, states, and organizations. That's us. Resilience is the power or the ability to return to the original form after being forced, pushed out of shape. And based on what's happening with some of our political systems and some of our local agencies, I would say everything is pretty bent right now, out of shape. And then the community is a social group, any size, whose members reside in a specific area and have common cultural and heritage background. So as we've been speaking, we are trying to pull this community together and offer this platform, and that's really what ARC is kind of to bridge the gap between all these different groups. To be resilient, we must all work together as one unified community, really. And so when we get bent out of shape, we can bounce back into position as a unified group. And there's so many different groups working on so many different issues that everything is becoming, a bit watered down. The effectiveness of these groups is really in jeopardy because everybody's passionate is the good news, but there are so many different groups operating on so many different levels. It's kind of like this town opening up 10 breweries at once, and I keep wondering, how are we going to support all these breweries? But if we all pull together as a group and we deal with each one of the agencies and each one of the subgroups issue together, and we accomplish a single win for the people. I hear people all the time, they're just disenchanted and they feel like there's nothing they can do. And I say to them, we need to focus together. I studied Martin Luther King's book, and Mr. King was just adamant that if you want to have a successful program, you need to be lashed together with your toothpicks as one giant spear and focus on an issue first that you can win. You don't start at the biggest issue at the top, and because people get deflated and worn out. But if we start on a small local issue, potentially asking NID to consider using other products besides Roundup and our local water supply, asking PG&E not to spray copious amounts of Roundup underneath all the telephone poles, and asking Caltrans to stop spraying the literally hundreds of gallons that they spray. When you see Caltrans on the side of the road with those giant sprayers, that's what they're spraying. Every time it rains, it runs into our sewer systems, it runs into our watershed, and the scientific data shows is that these particles cannot be removed, and they are finding their way into our kids' food. So ARC strives to be the gap between our local organizations and the community, as I said, and what we need from everybody in the community are local experts in every field, from educators to hydrologists to engineers. We need marketing people. We need support with volunteers. We need support on every level. We want to bring in specialists from each area to consult with us and then be this platform where we can pull everybody together and attack these issues as a unified group one at a time. And we will get to each one of the issues, but we need to address them on the wins. What can we win together as a group, and how can we move forward? So, I want to again thank the speakers who have taken their time to be here today, and I urge you to support them and their organizations. We've got everybody here from a local farmer to our fire department to our most successful food organization, Sierra Harvest, which I'm just, I can't say enough about Sierra Harvest. I've been personally supporting them financially and been a cheerleader for them for a long time. We have an NID candidate here who's if you read his literature and his stance, and you'll hear from him, is the type of change that we need. So I believe there's 3 openings on NID, is that correct? So this is a real chance for us to change the direction that the board is moving right now. Whether you're for or against them, I think it's time for some new blood in there, and for them to at least respond to the general public on what we feel is proper to use with our tax dollars. I believe that the dam is now up at $11 million in cost, and it seems to be just moving forward. I'll let Bruce speak more to that. But again, I want to thank you guys all for being here. Consider supporting ARC to help us put this organization together so we can support this platform. And again, you can visit our website. And if you're a specialist in one of these areas, we'd love to hear from you afterwards. And so without any further ado, Michael, you can come up and introduce our first speaker. Great. And that's going to be Nathan.
Thank you, Rick Barron. Nice round of applause. And I want to commend Rick. We actually just, we've been drumming together for years. We just started talking about, kind of going beneath the surface of our connection a few months ago. And he's absolutely gotten ignited and inspired and actually stepped in and has put a lot of time and effort into this. So we're doing this to help inspire all of you to even do what you're doing now, but let's all do it through a connected directory, through a conscious effort, through these monthly roundtables and broadcasts so we can archive it and get this out to the community, because a lot of people couldn't be here today. And I'm really excited later because Kathleen Halal is on her way from Non-Toxic Communities, who has actually worked with several communities in California to actually get Roundup out of the community. So she'll be here in a little bit talking about it. So we already have some victories and hope. So without any further ado, resilience means emergency preparedness. It means food and water security. It means economic development. Of course, we live in an arts and culture district. So we're going to talk a little bit about the emergency preparedness piece relating to fire. We also have Graham Noyes, who's here talking about alternative fuels. And then we're going to get really into the thick of the conversation and the keynotes regarding food and water safety. But on that note, I want to introduce our first keynote speaker. He does a lot to protect us, Nathan Menth.
Good morning. First of all, ARC, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Michael, thank you. Rick, appreciate your help. So today, the resilience that was mentioned, we need to focus on the emergency preparedness, and it is very easy to look at a fire engine and say, what can they do, and what do they do? And absolutely, we strive to assist the public with that. However, for emergency preparedness, it actually starts as the civilian, the homeowners, myself off duty. So I've got a couple of things that I want to cover today. The emergency preparedness factor in relation to wildland fire. When we talk about threats to the community, one of our target hazard areas is the community as a whole in relation to wildfire. We have a very dense population that's mixed with wildland-urban interface. And what that is if you picture the coastal with the ocean right up against the coastline, that's the boundary set. In the intermix, in the interface, there is no boundary that's set. We're plugged throughout the community with parcels, property, beautiful properties. And to do our part as fire suppression personnel, educating the public is actually a huge factor to that. Public education with wildfire prevention is such a broad scale. I'll try to narrow it down here to 5 minutes, but I want to focus on two aspects. There's a direct approach that the public can take, and then there's the indirect approach. First, I'm going to talk about the direct approach. The direct approach is indeed the hands-on. It is the opportunity to do what you can do manually to clear your yard, clear your roof, clear your property, leaves, gutters, pine needles, anything that can harness that ember or spark in the event and the inevitable event of a wildfire. Although a majority of wildfires in California are caused by humans, whether it's accidental, intentional, there are still aspects of wildfires that are caused by Mother Nature, lightning, etc. So the direct approach is eliminating the fuels or reducing the fuels. When we talk about that, we mentioned defensible space. I'm sure that's no secret word to anybody in here. Defensible space is the section around property that's viable to clear in an appropriate manner. 100 feet with 30-foot clearance around your house. You can have the green vegetation, the planted vegetation. You can even enjoy the natural vegetation. But without the fire's natural ability to come through and consume at a slow rate as it used to prior to the population being here, we have to take into consideration life and property. My co-partner, Chris Mertens, did just arrive here. If I could, I'm going to allow him to come on in and join me. He is also he's an employee with CAL FIRE. Come on up, Chris. When we're talking about life and property, that is what your fire departments, your fire districts, and fire suppression personnel, we care about. The environment is in there as well. However, with life and property, that directly affects the ability for the community to function, and we see an importance of that. So when it comes into the direct approach with the fuels reduction, the labor of clearing your property, we definitely support that, and we would strive for that. Talking about some defensible space currently at the moment, and then I was going to move on to an indirect. So we talked about direct, now I'm going to talk about some indirect. Indirect is the mental preparedness, that mental state of readiness. We all hope for the best, but let's prepare for the worst. We've heard many stories come out of California in the past 10 years of significant fires, fire behavior growing, and the preparatory, I guess, mannerisms that we can take to avoid that or be mentally prepared for it. There are multiple organizations that Nevada County Consolidated, we have our website up at www.nccfire.com, www.nccfire.com, that allow you to have some basic components of questions and answers. Ready.gov is an excellent website. And all of this indirect preparatory states you guys can take, it relates right to your level of preparedness. Evacuation sheets, evacuation routes, truly knowing your community and how to get out of your community more than the one way that we always do. Take the back roads every once in a while, learn those routes. Understand that the topographical features in your neighborhood may directly impact you and your family or community in certain areas. We have significant drainages, Dog Bar, Brewer Drainage. We have the Champion Mine on the west side, even going up Highway 20 with the Deer Creek. These are significant drainages that lead directly into beautiful communities in our area. Having the opportunity to mentally prepare for that, identify these checklists, understand, are you prepared, ready.gov, having that supply of your credentials ready to go, flashlights, communications, secondary plans for communications. In the fire service, we always relate to a face-to-face communication as the best form of communication. And it is, because there's no intent or no reliance on supplemental material and or interpretation. So we rely on you guys to have a system in place to talk to your families, to check in with loved ones, and to acknowledge or to relay to them that you have been successful in the event of an evacuation. Like I said, we could spend hours and hours upon talking about this. And one last thing I do want to talk about is what we have done to assist you to prepare. Now, I've mentioned the websites and I've mentioned the list and the evacuation list. However, as the population grows, typically the fire department personnel running up and down the streets in the middle of the night with their sirens on isn't as effective as it used to be due to that urban sprawl, like I talked about, that wildland-urban interface. So one thing that Nevada County OES and partners with the Sheriff's Department, surrounding agencies, have done is go to a Code Red notification system. And for those of you who don't know what a Code Red notification system is, it is a streamlined way to get mass media out on internet, email, cell phones, telephone calls, voicemails, landlines, alerting you of evacuations. It's not only emergencies with significant incidents, but it's a possibility of a water boil situation. So it's actually a widespread, and I encourage all of the listeners and visitors here today, if you're not signed up for Code Red, please look into it. Please sign up. It is an excellent opportunity to take to get notified. You can access that through Nevada County's website, and you can just Google search Nevada County Code Red, and it'll bring you right up. It's a very informative website.
Nathan, is that the one where they do the star 211 to get into the directory?
Star 211 is the Nevada Counties and Disaster Response in the loop, and that is another form. Code Red is going to be a supplemental item that is driven through the Nevada County Office of OES. So I appreciate your time. Chris, I am going to allow Chris to have the floor here for a little bit and go over a couple things. As Nevada County Consolidated, we do strive in community protection. Our doors at our fire stations around the community, along with many other jurisdictions that we operate with, very close-knit. Please feel free to stop in, ask questions, get the answers to those questions. This is a situation where, in the event of a wildfire or a natural disaster or even just a large snowstorm during the winter, if you need help and 911 is dialed, you will get the resources that you need, and we are part of that. So if you have questions that we can assist with, please stop by. You don't have to call 911 to ask questions, but swing into a fire station, swing into a police station, CAL FIRE stations, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to have Chris talk for a little bit, and then we'll field some questions, and thank you for your time.
So good morning, Officer Chris Mertens, CAL FIRE Law Enforcement. So just a little bit of background, you're probably wondering, CAL FIRE has a fire suppression division and a law enforcement division. So my job is to basically enforce forest and fire laws, which is why we're all here, the big dilemma in the state right now. My jurisdiction is Nevada, Yuba, and Placer counties, so we pretty much go to any fires, we investigate, we assist with public education events like this, and then we also go to citation, enforcement, arrest on the law enforcement side. So our partners in Nevada County, whether it be consolidated or a city mutual department, we work hand in hand with 24/7 with prevention and education. And that's why we're all here today. One of the biggest things that I'm part of is I'm in charge of all of our defensible space inspectors for Nevada County, Yuba, and Placer County. They work in our shop in the Prevention Bureau. Our primary mission is for them to go out, and I don't know if anyone here has had one of our inspectors come out yet, but they basically do a defensible space inspection on your home, which is all preventative for you, the homeowners, and the community. It's free of charge. There's no charge to it. You can call any CAL FIRE station. CAL FIRE engine crews are also trained to come out and do an inspection. Everything is digital now, so they have a tablet. They come out, they spend no more than probably about 15 to 30 minutes at your house. They give a walk around, they talk to you, they give you education material. And like I said, it's free of charge. They'll be more than happy to come out any time of the year, whether it's raining or whether it's right now. Our enforcement period, what we aim for is obviously the springtime, when the fire danger is at its lowest, when we're telling people, please hit that 30-foot zone around your house, hit that 100-foot zone around your house. And our biggest message is, you can write it down, it's www. And I think there's a pamphlet which readyforwildfire.org, and we have a pamphlet in the back of the room that you can look at before you leave, which has all the information. You can put it on the website, and that basically outlines all of the prevention education programs that CAL FIRE offers, and that we work with all of our local community members. We work really tight with Nevada County OES, Placer County OES, working with them to also have their inspectors go out and do the same thing. We work with any government, whether it be Nevada Irrigation District or all the way down to the nonprofit local community group that wants help. So any event, and I don't want to step on anything Nathan's already said, but we pretty much all are working to do the same thing. Our mission is to protect the community, and we work for the community. And after this meeting, if you guys have any questions, feel free to come up to me. I can give you my name, information, business card, whatever you would like, and we can have further conversations.
Thank you, guys. We know how important your work is here. Everybody recognizes that. There's no question about it, but I think it's important that we say it and acknowledge it. So thanks.
Yeah, and as the coordinator, thank you.
So in the event of
So again, as Payom said, we want to thank you for your service. A couple years ago, I live up on the top of Red Dog Road. We had the Lowell Hill fire, and I got to know some of the local firefighters who, for 3 days, stood at the line of my property and defended my house and my property from the Lowell Hill fire. And it was an amazing time of bonding. We'd bring up coffee and food, and these guys really put their life on the line for our community. So once again, thank you so much for all that you do. And under emergency preparedness, you know, we live in earthquake country. Next month, there's a huge statewide focus on earthquake preparedness. Michael Logue, who's doing audio, actually took the incentive to go online and download information about emergency prepared kits. All of this, again, we're trying to get everything on the source. Sometimes navigating all these channels can be really confusing. We're trying to get everything up on the blog and the events part of the source so people can go there and find information. But he did put together what you need to have an emergency preparedness kit, things like water filters and flashlights and batteries. Don't wait till it happens, do it now. So the next person I'd like to introduce, we've gotten to know each other, and I have a world of respect. He works on some amazing things. Recently, the government did some huge changes as far as emissions around vehicles and carbon emissions. And our next speaker is pretty much the head of the Low Carbon Fuels Coalition. He's also a member of our community. He's going to talk a little bit about what's happening with the quality of our air. And then I know many of you are here for the food and water safety piece. We're going to get right into that. But I want to introduce a great guy, and he spends thousands of hours doing what he does. He has the big picture, and if we're lucky, we're going to get him as one of our advisors for ARC. I want to introduce Graham Noyes.
Thanks very much, Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and really commend you for the work that you've been doing. Michael and I got to know each other first at KVMR Broadcaster School. Admittedly, he was way ahead of me to start with. And is Lisa here too? And one of our teachers, Lisa Parker, is here. I want to recognize her. I feel like I'm a little bit of a broadcast school dropout, and Michael's gone beyond his PhD now. But at any rate, I'm here to talk about fuel and energy in particular and the resilient side of that. I'm going to be very quick because we got great people coming up after me here, and really want to focus at my background, as Michael said, is in low carbon fuels. I have a legal practice that focuses on fuel and carbon law pretty much exclusively, and then I lead up the Low Carbon Fuels Coalition, which is an organization dedicated to the support and expansion of low carbon fuel policies in California nationally and internationally as well. And so I want to talk about the potential for making this community more resilient from a fuels and energy perspective. We live in a mother lode of resources from a renewable perspective. We all know we have fabulous sun, sometimes feels like too much sun. We've got some good wind resources out there, tremendous biomass. In fact, so much biomass that it gets talked about as fuel here for fires. We have wonderful people, technology, and know-how, and we have tremendous community and communications. And again, commend KVMR as a resource to really bind the community together and let us speak to each other. Comparable to Rick's definition of resilience, I picked up one from the Rockefeller Foundation: the capacity to survive, adapt, and thrive in the face of chronic stress and acute shocks, and even transform when conditions require it. So that's what we have to do here. We have to transform, and we have to think about this at multiple levels. I'm not going to talk about international. I'm not going to talk about national. I'm not going to talk about state. I think we start thinking about regional. We think about county. We think about local. We think about neighborhood. And we even think about dwelling units out there as we think about resilience. And depending on that perspective, we're thinking about different things. Two key things that we need to do. First of all, we have to stop this one-way cycle we've got right now of moving carbon from the subsurface and the surface into the atmosphere. We had hundreds of years ago people figure out the greenhouse gas effect, that if we put carbon in the atmosphere, it made it warmer. And we've watched it ever since. And we've been monitoring it closely for 60, 70 years now. And it's doing exactly what we were afraid it would do. We're there. So we've got to stop that cycle. And as Governor Brown's executive order established just recently, California in particular has to achieve carbon neutrality now by 2045 and be carbon negative subsequent to that. So we've got great state leadership on this front. We also not just have that's really a global impact that we want to participate in, but we need to be resilient here in terms of adapting to these changed circumstances, because we've got this situation clearly on hand already, expressed sort of most dangerously on the fire side, but we have climate change as a threat multiplier. We have extreme heat. We have changes to the ecosystem on the whole, and new threats. So our challenge here is to design both energy and fuel systems that can meet these challenges. And I think of energy on the power side and fuels more on the transportation side. People use those words differently, but that's what I mean. And each one of these really has three facets. We have the energy supply. How are we sourcing the energy? How is it being distributed? and then how is it being stored and what kind of technologies are being used out there. Same three factors on the fuel side. What are those sources of fuels? How does that fuel get distributed, and how is there fuel storage? And when we think about resiliency, we can think about a much more resilient system, or we can think about the system we have now, which frankly isn't resilient and breaks down in all kinds of ways that we know about. So I wanted to stick to my 5. Little time for Q&A. Thank you.
So, are there any questions? I know some people called about, because Nevada County has Nevada County 2020, where they just completely solarized the route in the government center, but they're also talking about doing more of a citywide complete solar system. So there's a lot of exciting progress that's being made that you might not know about. And again, we're trying to use the source as kind of a clearinghouse to let you know about these things through blogs and through events, et cetera. So there is exciting stuff happening. Relative to that, what Graham is talking about, we're actually, Payom and myself are actually working on, in collaboration with the city, to turn a barren piece of 100 acres in Nevada City into actually a resiliency education center to showcase some of these technologies and techniques. I also want to acknowledge Cathay Fish as my Swami Mami, who taught me that there's actually a huge role that agriculture plays in the role of carbon farming. I recently went to the Sacramento Climate Change Coalition conference. I went there was maybe 20 people at the conference. I was mortified. But one of the women stood up and said, "We need to plant more trees." Everybody kind of chuckled, "Oh, tree huggers, haha." But the reality of how nature already has solutions organically woven into its fabric, and how we need to go back to some of these ways like the indigenous people did for centuries, is practical common sense. So does anyone have any questions? Rick's here with the microphone. And just speak into the mic, because even though we can hear each other, we are broadcasting the event. So any questions for Graham, please?
Yes, my question is there anybody doing, working with the methane production that was started back in the 60s? I had a farm. I had a generator. I generated methane from my farm animals, manure. Chickens were the best. And I just wondered if any of that has carried forward in technology in any way, working maybe with a neighborhood methane generator for either cooking fuel or transportation fuel.
Great, wonderful question, and huge activity going on in the state. And typically, most of these are Air Resources Board, what folks call CARB out there, led programs. This particular one goes to a bill by Senator Lara, SB 1383, focused on short-lived climate pollutants and methane in particular. And there is extensive work on looking for ways to capture methane, which, people talk about methane bad. Well, methane's pretty much natural gas. So if you can actually take that methane and get it to a purity level of natural gas, and then use it in as a resource, either as an energy resource, as a fuel resource, you have taken a short-lived climate pollutant, changed its chemistry, turned it into a power source, and you've done fabulous things for the environment. Most of my work actually focus on a program called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard, and they do carbon intensity pathways for different types of fuel. The lowest carbon intensity pathways, typical carbon intensity of gasoline and diesel is about 100 grams of CO2 per megajoule. We see conventional ethanol about a 20% reduction. Advanced ethanol and biodiesels are 70 or 80% reduction. Dairy methane coming off of cow manure is literally a negative 270. Negative carbon intensity, because it's taken that methane and using it, and there's tremendous value in the Low Carbon Fuel Standard program for credits that come off of that. So, fabulous idea to figure out how to take that methane, instead of releasing into the atmosphere as a short-lived climate pollutant, make it into a vehicle's fuel or an energy source, and look for ways to monetize that greenhouse gas reduction so it carries the project better from a cost standpoint.
With the sort of scaling of graphene and how that's starting to infiltrate into the solar and electrical transportation problems that we have.
I'm sorry, the scaling of
Graphene.
I'm not.
You're not familiar
Okay.
with it?
Based on that, we're kind of running
And it's really for this reason that I'm going to be holding space every Wednesday here at the building from 6:30 to 8 to do community roundtables to identify these issues with these monthly public forums and broadcasts. So it's not just a one-off today. So again, thank you, Graham, for all the amazing work you do. You can already see just in the few panelists we've had here, we have the wealth of knowledge and solutions and information here. We just need to organize, share the information, and like Rick was saying, tie all our toothpicks together, make a lance, and be able to defeat these things that are assaulting our quality of life in our community here and throughout the Sacramento River watershed. So the next person, we're really happy he could be here. He's kind of a local hero because of what he does, but now he's a legend. He was on the front of the Union newspaper because he actually took the risk to come out into the light and say, hey, I'm an organic farmer. I own Indian Springs Organic Farm. And you know what? I'm concerned because I use water from NID, and we know that the water has some huge issues. And again, I do want to say I'm not here to politicize any issue or it's us against them. It really takes solution-based approach of building bridges, how we can collaborate as individuals and community members with nonprofits and with local government. And you're going to hear from a little bit from Bruce, who's running for NID. But I do want to introduce a local hero of mine. He brought a lot to the surface. He really hit a nerve. Michael Passner from Indian Springs Organic Farm.
Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm Mike Passner, Indian Springs Organic Farm. I've been farming organically in Penn Valley for 32 years. We've been using NID water the whole time. I'm here today because I care about water quality, human health, the health of our livestock, wildlife, creeks, rivers, and for all the people. We're fortunate to have NID. They're providing agricultural water down in the lower country from the mountains, and they do a good job of it. My goal is to help NID reduce herbicide use, both terrestrial on the berms and banks and aquatic herbicides applied directly to our ditches. NID Vegetation Management Plan states fire, snakes, skunks, and mountain lions as problems, and we can handle these problems. Why should everyone be concerned about herbicides in and near their water? NID uses the chemicals Cutrine, Nautique, and Captan, all copper-based herbicides dripped directly into their irrigation ditch system through boxes on the banks. Arnold Schwarzenegger's 2008 Environmental Protection Agency studied the effects of elemental copper in water. They concluded that 1,300 parts per billion of copper is harmful to human beings. NID puts that number at 2,500. 250 parts per billion copper causes pigs to lose weight. Just 25 parts per billion can be detrimental to sheep. Wildlife is even more sensitive. The terrestrial chemical NID applies is Roundup, active ingredient glyphosate. 2 years ago, the World Health Organization declared glyphosate was a probable carcinogen. Last year, the Environmental Protection Agency determined Roundup to be a carcinogen. Both aquatic and terrestrial herbicides are applied broadly by NID. I've got a map in the other room that we built, and I'll talk about that. I think they'll show pictures of it later. I've learned that most people are unaware of the extent of this application. So I've created 3 large maps. They're 6 foot tall by 12 foot wide. The maps were created as I requested on public records request from Nevada Irrigation District this information. They would not give it to me digitally. They gave me a box with 565 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper in it. We spent last winter taping those together. We laminated them and we mounted them on plastic signs. I welded up racks for them, and we've been displaying them around, and they're very interesting. They're very intricate. They have a lot of detail. So one of them's out there. The other 2 I didn't bring today. The maps show the 450 miles of irrigation ditch system that NID has. 350 miles of which are treated with herbicides. 33 miles of this system are what NID calls randoms. We know them as natural creeks. The 65 red dots represent application sites for aquatic herbicides dripped directly into water. They're aluminum boxes. They put 5-gallon containers or less or more of Nutrien, Cutrine, Nautique, and Captain in them, and they drip for about 4 hours directly into the irrigation water. They make a purple cloud in the water, and you can see it. And you can look downstream and see the animals drinking from that creek. For an organic farmer, aquatic herbicides are applied 7 times during the irrigation season, April through October. As an organic farmer, I can't have these chemicals on my water and on my property. For 30 years, NID shut my application box off on poison day. 3 years ago, they quit doing it. They suddenly told me it's now my responsibility. So for the last 3, I've always checked them. They'd shut off and I'd shut off every year. And now I shut off by myself because NID no longer shuts them down. So they do that 7 times a year. There's a better way to do this. To NID's credit, they formed the Integrated Vegetation Management Working Group. They handpicked 12 people to explore alternatives to glyphosate. This group should be open to everyone, especially stakeholders, people that have a stake in this, the farmers who want to participate. They know so much about how to use this water, how to keep these ditches flowing, and NID doesn't seem to utilize that very well at all. They should, but are not at this time, including aquatic herbicides. They're only studying Monsanto's glyphosate because it's probably going to be jerked as a possible use fairly soon. The copper is going to prove similar in effect to the glyphosate. This group does not operate in transparency. This has been a problem with NID for quite a while, and it's still a problem. The alternatives. They also refuse to consider what I call the most effective and economical alternative to the use of herbicides, which is cleaning using these small excavators. They'll run excavators down these ditches once a year before the season starts, clean out any debris, get the rocks out. If they did that one time a year and then as necessary through the rest of the year, back grading with these little excavators, cleaning out any green that was a problem, any places of algae buildup, they could eliminate a huge amount of these aquatic and terrestrial herbicides with these little excavators. It's a much better method. On the maps, which you can't see right now, I included the proposed Crap Dam. The project is a resurrection of the 1920s dam proposal named the Parker Dam. 3 years ago, Rem Scherzenegger, general manager of NID, renamed the proposed project the Crap Dam Centennial Reservoir and Power. This is a $1 billion plus proposal that makes no sense, economically or for storage value. It would only fill occasionally. The cost would be put on the backs of us, the ratepayers and the taxpayers. The best method for convincing NID to change is to elect Bruce Herring, right there, to Division 2 and Laura Peters to Division 4. Ricky Heck is already elected because nobody ran against her. We need to bring NID into the 21st century. We need to usher in science-based, transparent decision-making. The old guard has outlived its usefulness for NID. Please vote on November 6th. This is NID's most important election to ensure the long-term health of our community. For more information, I've got a website, safeditches.com. Thank you very much.
One quick question. I know, and then you're next. My daughter got type 1 diabetes, contracted that in 2009 when she was 8 years old. And our androcologist down in Sacramento wants to know what is going on in Nevada County. His practice runs from Elk Grove all the way to Reno. He has 1,400 patients. The man is run ragged, and he told me that this county has the highest level of type 1 diabetes from Elk Grove all the way to Reno. And he basically said, what is going on up there? Now, we know that heavy metals will trigger the gene in type 1 diabetes. So the copper that they use is not just at trace levels, they're using it at what level, and what is it classified as?
Elemental copper is, yes, some of these is part of the components they put directly into the water. I can't really tell you the levels that are in the chemical. They're very high when they first put them in. There are many people who are interested in monitoring these chemicals, and I can't address that right now due to legal concerns. There are other chemicals, though,
I
too.
will say this. A couple days ago, we met with David Howland, who's a water scientist. We did a 18-minute interview with him, who's actually been testing the water. We have all the science. Again, the source directory, Golden Road TV, there's video there for some of the questions you might be asking that we can't answer. There's been a great amount of field work to interview the people for today. Also, when we have our intermission, we're going to be playing that interview with him on NCTV, on Butte County Cable TV, and on our YouTube channel. So if we don't get all the answers now, I want to refer you to the archive of information that is available with David Howland.
Mike, we got another question for you.
Mike, as you well know, because we've talked about this subject for so many years, there's a group of us here that have got behind David Howland and introduced him to what the problems are here. But I myself have a problem with Roundup and genetically modified foods, and it gives me a huge stomach problem. I really believe a lot of people have this problem and don't know it. So I bought myself an organic certified farm. I had no idea that they were spraying Roundup. Here's my question, and I've asked you this before, maybe you know more about it. How do I know when they're spraying the Roundup? That's my problem. I know when they're spraying the copper because they tell us, they send us a paper.
Yes.
When are they spraying the Roundup? I want to know. And don't I have the right to know?
The copper's applied to our water system by the calendar. They give you a calendar of what day you need to shut your water off. This is an archaic method for applying herbicides. When you study this in school, they'll say nobody does it that way anymore. You do it by how often it's needed. As far as the Roundup, NID will not tell you when they're spraying Roundup. There you have it.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Mike, for being here. We can't take more questions right now just because we're out of time. Mike's going to be here.
You know, we all spend so much time talking, checking emails, looking up Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And the thing is, it's excuse my French, it's asses and elbows time, right? Information is out there. Anybody can get online and find it. We're showcasing it here today, but we're trying to inspire you to become an active part of what's happening. And I just want to peek your head in, Kathleen. Come on in. We want to give you a chair. I just want to introduce really quick from the Guild in Sacramento. She's not going to speak yet, but they just arrived. She just flew up from LA to be part of this event. Jessica Denning from the Guild in Sacramento. And over there, raise your hand, Kathleen Halal from Non-Toxic Communities, who helped ban Roundup in Irvine County. She is a champion and certainly an amazing woman. So our next guest, she does a lot of work here in the county. I know she's involved in the Green Party. Like most of these people, they're doing 6, 7, 8 different things to help make a difference in our community. But our next speaker is helping to spearhead GMO-free Nevada County. And I would like to introduce Sue Roberts Emery.
Woo. It's an exciting time to be alive, I'm telling you. There's a huge paradigm shift coming, and it's great to be in this room because this is what we need. We need solutions. It's pretty grim out there. But thank you all for coming. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Rick. I had a great time speaking with you the other day. I've got some things I'm going to read. GMO-free Nevada County. We took the summer off just because we are all really, really super busy. My friend Carmen is here. I'm an activist as is Carmen, and she's going to be holding up some signs for the TV hosts and the audience to enjoy. So this is what we do. GMO Free Nevada County is a grassroots organization trying to get genetically modified food out of our county, not to be able to grow it. We have grass coming in. GMO grass is on the way. So we have golf courses in our county. We really have to protect our borders. This is not to put any burdens on farmers, but it's to protect them. We all heard about Percy in Canada years ago. The GMO came into and infected his crops, and he was being sued by Monsanto. So we want to protect our own borders and not allow GMOs in Nevada County. Right now, there's 13,734 square miles of GMO-free growing zone in the state of California, which doesn't seem like much, but it's by miles. It's not acres. Nevada County will add 974 square miles to that GMO-free California. So that's what we're trying to do. We have 6 counties so far that have banned GMOs. We have Humboldt, Marin, Mendocino, Santa Cruz, Sonoma, and Trinity counties. We'd love to make Nevada County the 7th county in California. So we will be probably moving through Nevada City, Grass Valley city councils, and going to the supervisors with the $289 million settlement that Dwayne Lee Johnson got the state of California when he conducted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, working as a groundskeeper at the Benicia School District. He, I just got words all over the country from my friends and family when that happened. They're like, Sue, you must be so happy. I'm like, this is the tip of the iceberg. It's sad. This man would prefer to have his life as opposed to this money. And one thing I just want to say, we are in the biggest experiment in real time with GMOs in this country, and we are the lab rats. It's being perpetrated on us in real time right now. So everyone just needs to pay attention, and I'm so happy to be here. There's so much information I'm going to be telling you. So I've got some fun facts. I'm going to throw those out. If you would like to know more about the GMO-free Nevada County, Nicole Ragland is out in the front area. Please give us your names, your email, and she will contact you when we have our next meeting. We really hope to overwhelm the city councils and the supervisors of this county to get GMO, to get glyphosate out of this county. It's being sprayed at the schools. We really need to stand up. So I'll get more into that when I get into my activism. GMO, genetically modified organism. It also stands for glyphosate modified organism when we're talking about plants. I learned this from Terry Verrain, who was a nematode specialist. He worked in the industry for 30 years, and he was taught in school that these little tiny little worms were bad for the soil, that they were eating the roots of the plants, and that we did not want these nematodes. So nematodes are the most numerous multi-cellular animals on Earth. In one handful of soil, there's thousands of these nematodes. So there's a difference between soil and dirt. Dirt is inorganic. It's not alive. You can grow GM crops in dirt. Wow, because there's no nutrients in that. Soil, to be an organic, a permaculture, real farmer, you need soil, and you need the rhizomes in the soil. You need synchronicity between the sun, the air, the water. It all is going to go into our bodies. Food is medicine, and that's huge. That's something we don't think about that often, but everything we put into our bodies matters, whether it's a Dorito. You shouldn't do that, but you do. Every once in a while you do. There's 650 million liters of Roundup are sprayed every year in the U.S. 1 drop of Roundup on your skin will show up in your urine within 30 minutes. 1 drop. Plants are sprayed with Roundup when they're harvested, i.e. Crops are sprayed. Wheat, barley, corn, soy. It helps to dry the crop in a quicker time. So time is money. It all comes down to the money. And I'm going to bring back this around to the money. You always want to follow the money because Monsanto has their hands deep in our congressmen's pockets. So your politics matter. There's 160 crops that are sprayed with Roundup before they're harvested. And then they're instantly going into your cereal and breads and food. To get a little tiny bit of the science, I'm not going to get too much into the science because there's so much other things I really want to talk about. 1 part per trillion, that's trillion with a TR, of glyphosate causes cell division. Nevada County has a very high rate of breast cancer. We all know that cancer is cell division. 1 part per trillion of glyphosate causes cell division. 22 parts per billion of glyphosate is showing up in our wines, even our organic wines. Infamil, soy-based infant formula has 170 parts per billion. So that's a lot lower than that 1 trillion that's causing the cell division. But our infants are drinking it. Cheerios, 1,120 parts per billion in Cheerios. So for many families, that's the first food that their kids eat. Glyphosate is an epigenetic chromosome disruptor. And what that means, by the 3rd generation, our chromosomes have been changed so much that it's really affecting our guts and our biomes. So I have a direct, it interferes with the normal development of the fetus, humans and animals. I work a lot with horses. I'm an equine massage therapist. I am seeing more horses on GastroGuard and ulcer protection because their intestines are so inflamed. I've been a horse person my entire life. I've never seen this before, except for the last 10 years. Horses are dying of colic. It's rampant. My niece is married to a sod farmer. Her husband is 2nd generation sod farmer. So when my niece had her daughter, she was born with her intestines outside of her body. I put this directly to glyphosate, and he was told that it's safe. He was told as a sod farmer that that's safe. It's not safe. So now they're living with that. Luckily, Raina, my niece, is healthy as she can be, and she's born and she's very normal. But to have young parents go through that, my niece was terrified. She didn't know what to do with this child that had to go to a surgery 3 hours after it was born. Parkinson's is on the rise. Roundup is linked to neurological diseases, including ADHD and Alzheimer's. My father-in-law just passed away just last week of Lewy bodies Parkinson's, which combines the Alzheimer's with the Parkinson's. He was a veteran, and the country of Vietnam is currently getting together a lawsuit to sue Monsanto because of Agent Orange. So we really should be suing our government for allowing it to be done, but right now they're going after Monsanto. There's a rise in autism. There's a 0.99 correlation rate of autism with the amount of Roundup. There was a study done by Nancy Swanson. She is an amazing woman. She worked for the Navy. She's a physicist for the Navy. She has 6 patents to her name. She worked up at Western Washington University. She did a 20-year study which mapped the use of Roundup over 20 years and the use of and the increase in autism, and it matched a coefficient of 1 is causation. So this is 0.99%. Also senile dementia rates at a 0.99%. So that's pretty close to being proof right there. The World Health Organization, Mike mentioned this, I think it was Mike, determined that glyphosate was a probable carcinogen in 2015. Our own EPA determined that in 1985. And it was under pressure from Monsanto, they reversed their decision in 1991. So, did we hear that? No. Again, we're following the money. Monsanto is guilty of crimes against humanity. They do not practice the precautionary principle. That's a huge part. If you're going to be on this planet and you see something wrong, you need to point it out and let people decide on their own. The precautionary principle is not followed. It's corporate power. The public should have been warned of the dangers of Roundup a long time ago. Roundup formula is 125 times more toxic than glyphosate alone. And that's because of the inert ingredients in Roundup that cause it to penetrate our cell barriers. Glyphosate was originally developed in 1964 by the Stouffer Chemical Company as a pipe cleaner, as an industrial pipe cleaner. So think of that. Think of Drano, and then think of your own gut as that goes through, what it's doing. It leaches out the minerals. It's a chelator of metals. So all of your aluminum, zinc, boron, and even arsenic are being attracted by this, and then it's going in and damaging your livers and your kidneys. I actually have 2 dogs that passed away last year. My husband works on a ranch in Penn Valley, and the NID goes right through that. So my dogs are constantly in the NID ditches. One died of liver failure, the other of kidney failure. And we've talked with our vet, and he sees a definite pattern in the times that we were in the vet's office with these dogs. And it was always at the end of April. The NID ditch starts on April 15th, and our dog was dead by April 28th. And this is years of exposure. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Monsanto. I was part of the Monsanto 10. 2017, we shut down Monsanto, and there were 10 arrests, and a lot of them from this county. So, you know what? Before I get into the Monsanto, and again, following the money, this is a quick story about our politics. In 2010, my husband ran as a third-party candidate going for Tom McClintock's seat. We got a private talk with Governor Brown at the time, and it was a high dollar event. So we wanted to talk about state-owned banks. He would not talk about it. But later on in the room, all the people are there, and he was happy to tell us what he learned from his first time as governor to his second time as governor. The first time as governor, someone mentioned face-to-face contact. It was the fire department. It's better to do things face-to-face. Governor Brown's first 2 times as governor, he would go face-to-face and talk to the politicians about vote yes on SB 562 or vote no on SB 562. So he would directly talk to them. That what he learned his second time around, he didn't go to them. He went to Big Ag. He went to, and he told us this in the middle of a fundraiser. He goes to Big Ag, Big Oil, Big Pharma. He went to whoever owned said politician and asked them to release, and I'm using air quotes because these are his words, to release such and such a senator to vote yes or no. So we do have a puppet government right now, and I just really encourage everybody to get out there and have their voices heard because, again, follow the money. So Monsanto 10, May 2017, the Woodland Seed Facility is one of the largest biotech facilities in the world. It's in our backyard in Woodland, California. It used to be in Davis. And they got so much flack with the university there because the students were uprising against it. They moved it to the farming community of Woodland. And it's on Highway 16 right now. So last year, 10 of us were arrested, and we're sure it was because Bayer was taking over the company. They didn't want this kind of publicity for PR reasons. After 10 months of going to trial, our charges were finally dropped. One of our strong activists, Andy Cohn, passed away during the trial period. He was very sick. It just made us stronger altogether. So on October 15th, in Woodland, California, is the next shutdown of Monsanto. We need community members. We need families. We need parents. We need farmers. We need people supporting the Driscoll strawberry boycott. We need everybody there. You don't have to put your body on the line. It's hard to be an activist. It really is. It's very hard. But it's also empowering. When you look to your neighbors and see your friends and family standing with you, it's very, very empowering. You don't have to be arrested. We need witnesses. So that's what I'm going to say. If you can, please do that. Okay, so October 15th. There's so much more to say. If you need to come talk to me, we have 8,000 lawsuits right now going against Monsanto, and that Dwayne Lee Johnson was the first of many. So, okay, thank you. Oh. I do have 3 solutions. There is a woman, Michelle Perro. She is a pediatrician in Marin. The 3 things she tells people: drink filtered water. We know how important that is, listening to our NID people. Remove your shoes when you come in the house. Do not track that glyphosate, that the pesticides into your home, and eat organic food. That's how you can, those are the 3 things that you can take away. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Sue,
you. Thank
for being
you.
here. And we're going to move right into our next speaker. Go ahead and introduce, because I know we're tight on time.
Okay, I just want to comment. Recently, Rick and I did an interview with Elisa Parker at KVMR, who had the opportunity to see the new Michael Moore film. And the general feedback is it generated a lot of fear, but where are the solutions? So we're not here to create fear. We're here to educate, but we're here to inspire you. You guys starting to get on fire, get inspired a little bit? You want to help make some changes? We're going to go over now to another foundation institution in our community. Most of you have heard of Sierra Harvest, and they're doing some great work also, not just with organic farming, but also with the Food to Farm Conference, and now agro-tourism, bringing people into our community to be able to stay on farms and support the farmers through eating farm to fork food, supporting the farmers, seeing how things are grown, eating things off the vine. This is a huge economic contribution to our community that they're also working on. So I want to, on that note, introduce Malika Bishop.
Thank you for having me. I'm Malika Bishop, co-director of Sierra Harvest. And I just want to thank you all for taking the afternoon to spend time envisioning a resilient community, because that's what we need. And I know that you all do that in many parts of your life, but I really appreciate you all being here today and having a commitment to that for our community. I got into this work because both my grandmothers were farmers, and 2 of my grandparents were activists, freedom riders during the civil rights movement, anti-nuclear activists. And so through that, I knew that I wanted to do something to make the world a better place. And for me, that has always come back to food. Food is intimate to all of us. We all eat, we all contribute to the food economy. And the way that we do that has a huge impact on the health of our air, the health of our water, the health of our climate, and our own bodies and the environment. And, you know, so much of resilience to me comes back to rekindling our connection with the natural world. Because if we are really connected to the natural environment around us, we will find that resilience in our community on all fronts. And that is particularly true with our food. If we have a relationship to our food and where it came from and participate in growing and cooking it, then we find that resilience and the health that comes with that. Sierra Harvest educates, inspires, and connects Nevada County families to fresh, local food, seasonal food. We've been around for about 10 years. And, you know, to me, the first piece of having a resilient food community and food supply comes back to our farmers. We produce about, if you're very generous and assume that all the food that's produced in Nevada County stays here, we produce less than 5% of the food that we eat here in Nevada County. And if our food supply were to be cut off today, the grocery stores would have 3 to 5 days of food for us to eat. And so that's not a pretty picture when it comes to the resilience of our food supply. After 3 to 5 days, we would be left with what's in our gardens, what's on our ranches, what's in our pantries, and then our knowledge of wild foods and what grows around us. And so we need to reconnect ourselves to those things so that we can become a resilient community. And one part of that is supporting the farmers who produce the majority of the food at scale in this community. The average age of a farmer is 65 years old. How are you? How old are you? Somewhere in there. And so one of the things that Sierra Harvest does is farmer training. There's a woman named Sandra Higuerera who we met earlier this year. She was starting a farm later in life, starting a farm, and really, she had the farming skills. She could grow some beautiful cilantro, but she had no business sense. And after a year or two was kind of like, I think I'm going to throw in the towel. This is not working financially for me. I've pretty much lost all my savings and I don't see it continuing. And we were able, through Briar Patch, to send her to Eco Farm Conference where she gained some inspiration. And then she came back and took our farm business class. And through that, she learned the nuts and bolts. She said before the class, she used the fly by the seat of the pants method for doing her books. And, really, it was down to teaching her how to put a formula into Excel and, do these things that create the planning that creates a business that can be sustained. And so she took that class. She's now really thriving in her farm business. And then we took the next step. We said, okay, great. You've now got your business numbers and on track. How about becoming certified organic? This was something she was terrified of. All the fees and the paperwork and oh my gosh. But we took her step by step through the process, and she sat down with the organic certifiers and realized they're not mean people and they actually want to help her. And she is now a certified organic farmer, and she's able to gain the higher price for her food because of that. So you can go to Briar Patch and you can buy her product and support her in that way and pay what it costs to produce this good food. And the other piece of this, as consumers, we need to be willing to pay what it costs to grow good food. We've created and help support now the Nevada County Food Policy Council. And that's a group of 40 food and farming related businesses and nonprofits and farms and ranches. And together we did what Rick was talking about of what is it that we could do, that we could all rally behind around this food and farming issue. And we came up with something that we want to share with you today to jump on board with, which is 20 by 25. If we could, as a community, consume 20% of our food locally, 20% of our food be wholesome food, which to us means local, community-based, and ecologically produced. It would transform this community. It would create jobs for farmers. It would keep $142 million recirculating in this community to do good things with. And so if we can get on board with that 20% of your food, most people overestimate how much local food they actually eat. In the summertime in my garden, it's 100%, right? But really think about all of the things that you buy and really think about what would it take for me to get to 20% really of all the food that I consume coming from here in Nevada County. The second piece is the kids. because the kids are the future consumers, and they are our future leaders. And if we are not able to, this is the first generation of kids to have a lifespan that is predicted to be shorter than their parents, for all the reasons that the speakers before have talked about. And if we want a resilient community, we need to support our kids in reconnecting to where their food comes from. Sierra Harvest Farm to School program is now in 33 schools. We're reaching about 96% of the kids in Western Nevada County. And I'll just tell you 2 quick stories. There was this kid named Wyatt, and we do this Harvest of the Month tasting, where every month in every classroom around Western Nevada County, we have a seasonal fruit or vegetable. This past month, it was ground cherries. So they get to open the little package of the ground cherry and taste this thing that they may have not tried before and see if they like it. And, then they're dragging their parents to the farmer's market. Let's go buy those from Starbright Acres Farm because I know that they're really good. They're in Safeway being like, I love bell peppers. Let's try that, getting their parents on board. But we had a teacher who was a kindergarten teacher, and she had to do these Harvest of the Month tastings every month. And she grew up never eating a vegetable in her life. Anything green, wouldn't have it. It was a joke at school. Oh yeah, Mrs. Robinson, she doesn't eat anything that's not beige. And so, but she was like, okay, I'm going to try this on because I have to because of my class. And so she started taking the Harvest of the Month and tasting it and saying, kids, okay, well, that wasn't my favorite thing, but I'm going to try it again next time. Or that I actually really liked, lunchbox peppers or whatever it was they were trying. And it's just transformed her relationship to food as well as her own family. And her son is so excited now that, they ask her to go get these things, Harvest of the Month items, and she will now. She'll buy them at home. The third piece, and I guess I wanted to just loop back to the 20 by 25. So we're talking about 20% wholesome food by 2025. If we could get our community to eat 20% of our food from Nevada County, local and sustainably grown foods by 2025. The biggest objections I get to that are I don't have the time and I don't have the money. And I guess what I have to say is that when you create the time, you don't have to have the money. Right? When you create the time to grow your own food, when you create the time to cook your own food, it costs a lot less. And you are relating now to the deliciousness of the food economy. You're having that connection to nature that brings you strength and peace and all of these things that we're actually seeking in our lives. And so when we can slow down and spend that time, it pays off in so many ways. And I always say, in terms of our health, you're going to pay for it now. You can pay for your food now, or you can pay for it later in healthcare costs, right? So you might as well pay for it now. And then the third piece I just want to touch on is community access. Food security is about access to the good food for everyone. And we cannot have a community that is resilient without including every single person in that and the people who don't have the means to get it. And so one of the things that we do at Sierra Harvest is we build gardens. So that we've now built 70 gardens around Western Nevada County, and we stay with people for 2 years to help them through the learning curve of growing their own food. And I just wanted to read a quote from someone who said, we've lived in our house for 4 years. We tried for 2 years to grow something in the garden area we had. Nothing grew or would die soon after planting. We rarely ate fresh produce because of a limited income. And then Sierra Harvest came and helped me understand about sustainability and composting and the need for healthy soil. And now she's got this abundance of food that she's able to share with her neighbors. And this is what we get all the time. And and she says she feels successful, and it's good both for her physical health and her mental well-being. And that's what it's about. You know, it's not just about saving the world, but we feel better, and it affects, and the ripples are great. So thank you all so much, and we'll talk more.
Okay, well, we've been talking about change and what we can do, and we have an immediate opportunity to make some changes coming up this November. So there's 3 seats open at NID. Is that right, Bruce? Yeah, 3 seats open. That could potentially sway the whole decision-making board at NID and their whole philosophy. So the next gentleman, Bruce Herring, is running for District 2. And please give a warm applause for Bruce. Come on up. Thank you. Sorry it's running. And real quickly, I know it's running long, everybody. There's food out there, but be patient because these are important issues and everybody's passionate.
Okay, so I've been following water issues for 40 years. Ever since when I was a young man, I was a whitewater rafting guide, and I learned a lot about dams from the river's perspective. So the dam proposal caught my eye and made me stand up and pay attention. So I began attending NID board and committee meetings, and for the last year and a half, I've been doing so. So water managers face some unprecedented challenges. That's true, and we should not by any means, sugarcoat that. Due to climate change, the Sierra snowpack is already shrinking. Every year is so variable that we don't know, each year is different, right? But the long-term forecast, which of course could change easily, is that the total amount of precipitation will remain basically the same, but fall more as rain. There's also greater regulatory pressures from the state and federal government for a number of reasons, partly because of 9/11 and partly because of the Oroville Dam debacle. But so NID's one-size-fits-all solution to this, just looking straight ahead, they have one solution, and that's to build a 270-foot dam on the Bear River between Rollins and Combie reservoirs. It's already a very overworked river. It's unclear, as Michael said, whether or not the reservoir would even fill more than half the years. So what they're not paying attention to, and what myself and the other 2 candidates who were trying to move us forward instead of standing still, is a whole slew of alternatives. So what I'd like to do today is just run through what these alternatives are. I think it's well within our grasp to pursue these alternatives, and I think it could be much less costly. I mean, not only is there a huge financial cost to building Centennial Reservoir, it's approximately $500 to $600 million project. If you include financing, it could easily be $1 billion. But there are also huge cultural, human, and environmental costs. There are Nisenan burial sites along the Bear River. The Colfax Todd Consolidated Tribe, which is alive and well in the Colfax area and up by Forest Hill, actually continues to do rituals and gather plants and herbs in the Bear River Canyon, and that would be an immense loss for them. Also, there's a number of people who would be facing eminent domain because they're going to refuse to move. That would be an immense loss to them. The Bear River is also a viable wildlife corridor. So I'm just going to run down a handful of alternatives. And to me, a basket full of alternatives makes a lot more sense. First of all, in the upper watershed, we could continue, and NID does this to a certain extent. We need to do it a little more. We need to do it a lot more, and there's money available for this via grants. Enhancing meadows. The whole idea of meadow enhancement is to keep the water in the upper watershed longer, spread it out. The meadows are degraded, so they get channelized, and the water that melts in the spring just goes right through it. The whole idea is to keep the water in the meadow longer. You do that by raising the bed and making it so it can spread out more. Also, the forests, we've heard this from our gentleman right at the beginning, the fireman. The forests are overgrown. The forests are like straws in in the ground, right? They just suck. They're very thirsty. They suck water up. So we need to do not only just selective thinning here and there. We need to do some serious thinning of the forests where they're overgrown, and that will do two things. It will not only keep more water in the upper watershed, will also greatly reduce the risk of a catastrophic wildfire. And of course, that has effects on water quality and this whole story as well. Because if there is a catastrophic wildfire in the upper Yuba or Bear River watershed, it will do immense damage on the existing reservoirs, which we really need to continue to operate properly. They would be clogged with debris. The screens where the diversions are out of the reservoirs would be clogged with debris, and they would fill with sediment during the next rain. So, and that's a whole nother way we can do this, is reducing sedimentation in the existing reservoirs. NID does this a little bit. Their budget for that is $500,000 a year. We could equally make that about $10 million a year and really do some damage. Help. They don't even know how much supply they're losing in their existing reservoirs due to this increase in silting up of the reservoirs. That's just what we can do in the upper watershed. There's also leaks in the system. There's a huge backlog of deferred maintenance. There's inefficient operations, such as selling water by the miner's inch. We could do much better on a budget-based, a water use system, selling water by how much you actually use. Several more things that have been used much more in the last 30 years that we can keep going on are, of course, efficient toilets, shower heads, greater use of gray water, greater use of rainwater catchment, and why don't we have permeable asphalt so that the water can just soak into the ground a little more. Long-term things such as, and this is already happening to a certain extent, I know for a fact, in Santa Monica and San Francisco. When new big building projects, high-rise apartments or office buildings are built, not all of them, but a few of them are now being required to have their own water refiltration system so they can use their own wastewater, recycle it back, and if it's done properly, they what actually is going into the sewer or the wastewater management treatment plant is actually they're taking care of it right there on their property. So in the long run, we could work with the county and actually have new developments in Nevada and Placer County that actually can recycle their own water. And of course, in the long run, does it make any sense to use very expensive treated water to transport our solid waste miles and miles through pipes into the wastewater treatment plant? That just doesn't make sense. That's a long-term solution. And here's, and I'm not making any of this up. All this is being supported and studied on a regular basis by people at the University of California, at the Cal State systems, our local entities. We need to be partners with them and work with them more, all the way from the top, meadow enhancement and all these other possibilities, and work with them. NID does not like to work with partners like that, and as Michael said, they're kind of very secretive in sharing their own data. So it's data denial. So to me, it's time to just open this up. We have a lot of smart people in this community who are hydrologists, foresters, people who know how we can do this better. So it's a combination of pursuing the alternatives and working across the board with regional and local partners. And here's perhaps the most interesting long-term solution for this, and hydrologists have told me this. Bruce, probably in the year 2100, in the state of California, we're not going to be storing our water in the Sierra snowpack. We're going to be storing it in the ground, in aquifers in the Central Valley. And it just so happens that on the edge, NID is fortunate. The NID service area goes from the Sierra Crest all the way to the valley floor, just north of the city of Lincoln. And a great deal of NID's water is sold to Placer County. Placer County, western Placer County, is part of NID. North of Lincoln, sort of where the Bear River comes into the Feather River, is a viable underground aquifer. It's called the North American Subbasin, and it's sort of right where the foothills come down to the valley floor. There is a natural way to regenerate this aquifer with water that's actually from existing NID earthen canals. A lot of the aquifers in the Central Valley have to be injected, pumped into it. This doesn't happen in this case. We can actually, surplus water, we can send it down to Campfire West. We can send it into the already existing NID canals down there to replenish the aquifer. So in my view, using that aquifer as a water bank, which can be used by big users down in that area of NID, is a much greater and cost-effective solution than building, a giant mega dam. There would have to be some infrastructure, but it might cost $100 million instead of $1 billion, something like that. Good friend of mine that I've known only recently, Michael knows him. His name is Michael Ross, and he just happens to be the husband of the woman who is running for NID down in that area. And so, as Michael said, and as Rick said, the only way to change the NID culture right now is if Laura Peters and I can both get in there. Here's what Michael says. He's a civil engineer, has been working for water riches for a long time. Here's how you deal with stormwater and precipitation, which is the same. The 6 S's: slow it, spread it, sieve it, sink it, save it, and share it. And those 6 S's are captured in all the basic alternatives I just mentioned. And these are just a handful of them. There's so many things that we haven't thought of. Think about, we're talking about 80 years from now to the year 2100. 80 years ago, think how much different it was here and in the nation as a whole. So there's solutions here that we haven't even remotely thought of, that in the next 20, 30 years, these young people sitting in the back of the room and our children are going to have new data, new knowledge, working together. There could be other great solutions to keeping more water in the system than building a dam as well. Building a dam is a backward solution, 19th, 20th century solution. And so, in my view, we need to go forward instead of standing still. Thank you.
Bruce Herring, everybody. Thank you, Bruce. Now that is a breath of fresh air, some insight, and a man who's studied the issues and looking to do a paradigm change within NID. So take a look on who's running this November, get involved, do the research, and let's make the right choices for our community. So up next.
All right, so we only have a few minutes left, and we're going to take a break. We're getting more into the solutions. We could sit here and talk for years about all the issues from food, water safety, emergency preparedness, the 5G that they're rolling into our community. But right now, we're focusing our efforts on the food and water safety piece as far as ARC. So our next guest is a publisher of a holistic health magazine. He does this every day. He gives people in the community a voice, and he's brought a very special guest who he's going to introduce with some solution-based options of what we can do. I do want to mention on October 14th, I will be videotaping a workshop on how to do charcoal and carbon-based filtration for your home water system, so we can all get out of our water the things that are in our water. But on that note, I want to introduce, he's here today with his wife, Dara, and he's an amazing person. He has a radio show, a podcast, a magazine. He's super involved and is doing more than his part. From Lotus Guide magazine, we have Rahasya Poe.
Okay, I'm going to make this pretty quick. Michael asked me here to talk to you about independent media, its importance, what its function is. And basically, I could say independent media is the Gutenberg press of the 21st century times a million, because now we have a voice. Like, the reason I'm going to make my voice short here is because I want to give everybody else more time, because Michael and I and my wife, our job is to go into the crowd and give them a megaphone and say, here, speak your voice, speak it out, because something happens when people get information, and because with information you're armed with something to come back at, and the game doesn't work as well once you have information. And it works the same way as if I was going to tell you a joke, it would be really funny if you don't know the punchline. But if you know the punchline, it's not funny anymore. The joke doesn't work. Their game doesn't work if we know what's going on behind the scenes. Our last issue was about social media and the platforms like Facebook and Twitter, how they have it totally, the algorithms, everything, the software is generated to evoke a dopamine response from you. And kid you not, these people are much smarter than we are. They're much more driven, and they get up very early. If this was their meeting, there would be like 1,000 people here, because they are driven. And that's what we need to do. We need to wake up and start waking everybody else up, because we're going off the cliff. And if I talked very long, we would take this thing down to a whole different level of control, depopulation. There is a darkness to this that if we don't pay attention, they're going to have their way. Personally, I think we're waking up, because the American dream, you had to be asleep to even believe that. But as we wake up, the dream starts fragmenting and breaking down, just like at night. If you wake up of a morning, if you're asleep, the dream makes sense. Of course, pink ponies can fly. It totally makes sense. But if you start waking up, you start noticing things. Hey, wait a minute. Pharmaceutical companies shouldn't be telling us what drugs to take. Wait a minute. The military shouldn't be telling us that there's weapons of mass destruction. These things don't make sense. So I'm going to give up my time right now, and I just really appreciate all of you being here, and I appreciate you, Michael, just because believe me, this is an uphill battle, and if you stop for 1 minute pushing that boulder uphill, it starts rolling back down. So together we can make a difference. So thank you.
I want to show you a picture. I have some pictures of my breakfast here. And I have some other great kitty cat pictures. It's all cute, but we could, spend a lot of time just discussing that. But instead, I'm going to have him introduce his dynamic next speaker, who has health solutions that we all can implement in the comfort and convenience of our own homes. So
and this is Dr. Shan-Hong Lu. And I have to tell you, my wife and I have been doing the cleanse and really getting ourselves clean, and I can feel the clarity. That's the results you need. You don't need these results where, I think I really feel something. So I'm going to let Dr. Shan-Hong Lu come up here and tell you exactly what she does and why.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm a physician. I have been practicing integrated medicine for 20 years in Mount Shasta, California. And the reason I come here today is I actually recently decided to close my practice. And one of the reasons is I have seen for the past 20 years the doubling rate of all chronic diseases. Instead of seeing patient one-on-one, I feel I'm losing the battle. When we don't find out the root cause of our diseases, number one, our country is going to go broke. 19% of our national GNP is spent in medical management of chronic diseases. In holistic medicine, many practitioners are getting busier rescuing the people dying, drowning in the chemical poisoning. And so one of the reasons I come here is really I'm inspired by farmers, by organic farmers, by environmental activists, because it is time for us to come together to discover the root cause. And what's really exciting is actually we now can scientifically measure 172 chemicals in your urine, and anybody can do from home. Mike Gainza and I and Dr. Reeder are both here. We are the National Chemical Detection and Detox Project Foundation. We're actually starting this very, actually before the Monsanto lost their landmark lawsuit. One of the reasons is we want to inspire and waken up practitioners. instead of asking them to apply another methodology to treat disease, we encourage them to measure the toxic load. And by utilizing a very natural, the bodily inherited detox project, we can actually demonstrate within 3 months the drastic decrease of the toxic load. At the same time, we'll be having data that we can collect in each regions and promote organic neighborhood. And I know how hard it is, right? We have to invite hardware store owners in our next meeting and teach them the alternatives to control weed. Because many people are unaware the danger of glyphosate and Roundup. And it is time, because Roundup, like Sue said, it has 2 patents. One of them is a metal chelator, and I have a mineral scan. In the past 5 years, everybody's minerals are deficient, right? So why is that? Because Roundup now is saturating on Earth. And so that's one of the things we really need to detect them, and then we need to detoxify them at home. One of the detox program is actually just 2 things: mostly alkaline plant-based diet with a supportive supplement with the main ingredient of calcium deglucarate. And with these 2 simple things, we actually can see the drastic decrease, not only in the chemical load, but also in the symptoms of chemical toxicity. And in our organization, we gave people a symptom checklist. We encourage their physician to order the test, and then we do it in 3 months. So our vision is in 1 year, we're going to have 10,000 people with the before-after data. And this is the first time we can actually demonstrate the direct connection of human illness and chemical toxicity. And this way we can actually help people to realize the food can be poison and the food can also heal you. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope that is clear enough. Thank you.
Could you just answer a few questions if people want?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes. Any questions regarding? So what I want to do is I really want to invite everyone to, come and stay for the community roundtable, because I need help. We all need help to have this project done, and one person cannot do it. So.
How can we sign up to get on your project? That would be amazing.
Yes. So I like to invite Mike and Dr. Reeder. We have a Facebook page now. It's called the National Chemical Detection and Detoxification. So you can join our Facebook page. I will give you my cell phone number. My cell phone number is 530-925-0565. And that is my direct line. You can text me and I can get you connected. I need help also from small communities, a game changer mom. I think moms are really changing the world. And also, so we can talk about the project. How can we get rid of chemicals in our community?
Welcome to Sierra Streams Institute at the Woolman campus. I'm Joanne Heald, Executive Director. And here we are in my office. The focus of our work is mainly on the Deer Creek and Bear River watersheds. And the thing that's really unique about us is that we do citizen science. We involve citizens in our community in everything that we do. And we do that because we really want the citizens to be empowered and educated so that they can make change using scientific knowledge.
Hi, I'm Marianne Krushka. I've been on the board of Sierra Streams and Friends of Deer Creek for 20 plus years. It's an organization that depends on citizen scientists to collect the data to help us preserve the health and safety of our community, and it depends on all of you to donate as much as you possibly can to make it possible to preserve this beautiful and wondrous place to live and raise our children.
My name's Nancy Fleming, and I serve as the president of the board of directors for Sierra Streams. I've been in Nevada City for about 8.5 years, and coincidentally, right after we moved here, I met a gentleman who was a water monitor on Deer Creek for a group called Sierra Streams. And he thought I would be interested, and I really was. It was exciting, particularly because I live here on Deer Creek. So I did water monitoring for about 5 years, and then was asked to join the board. So I took a step up the corporate ladder and am now affiliated with the board.
My name is Saul Henson. I'm the Education Program Co-Director at Sierra Streams Institute. Here at Sierra Streams Institute, we have a number of different programs, including research, restoration, and education. Our education program was created to capitalize on the research and restoration projects that are happening at Sierra Streams Institute. So we're getting volunteers out, we're collecting water quality data, we're doing restoration projects, removing invasive species and planting natives, and we want to get students in Nevada County involved in those projects.
So what are we finding with all this data? Well, we're finding that there is a decline in salmon spawning habitat. And so we are out there trying to improve that habitat so we can increase those reds and increase the population of salmon. We're finding that we have contaminants in our soils, in our waterways, in our organisms due to historic mining. And so what are we doing about that? Well, we're out there, we are restoring the land, we're removing the contaminants, and we're allowing these spaces to be used again as more healthy habitat for the organisms and for human beings as trails and parks. We also have had fires and destruction of habitat, and we're finding that. And so we're out there also improving that habitat.
And as Joanne mentioned previously, it is the special aspect of Sierra Streams that we have citizen science engagement. This is what enables us to do the work that we have been doing, and we will need to have continued support and continued help for the future. There are a number of ways you can support us. The first is joining programs. The second, you can become a monitor, a citizen science participant. Of course, you can donate any amount of time and also money. And all of this is very valuable and will help us move forward. So please go to our website or call us and find out more about how you can be involved and you help continue this really important and valuable work in our community. Thank you.